God,
grant me the serenity
to accept the things I cannot change,
the courage to change the things I can,
and the wisdom to know the difference.
In this episode of Overcoming Addiction, we will be discussing the importance of recovery coaching and all things related to recovery. Tonight's guests are recovery coaches Richie Evans and Keriann Caccavaro. Together, we can make a difference. Here's your host, Paul Hammersley.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Overcoming Addiction. My name's Paul Hammersley, and I'm also the president of Malden Overcoming Addiction. And tonight we have a very important show. I have two guests here that are near and dear to my heart, and we spend a lot of time together working in the field of recovery, do a lot of events together. We see the disease first and foremost up front, close and personal, and I don't want to speak for them. I'm just going to introduce them, and first I want to say hi to Keriann.
Hi.
Kerry, how are you?
Good,
Richie.
how are you? Thank you.
How are we doing?
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we haven't had a show in a little bit, and we've had a lot go on. There's a lot to talk about in a little bit of time. So we're first going to get into what Malden Overcoming Addiction has been doing, what we have coming up, and you guys are an essential piece of that. We can talk about some recovery coaching, and wherever the conversation goes, it goes. And back in November, we had our 5th annual Candlelight Memorial Vigil, and that's where we honor the folks who have passed on. We honor the families, and we never forget. You know, we always want to keep people's memories alive, and both of you spoke at that event. Yeah. And, you know, I just want to talk about the event a little bit. What were your feelings on it? And again, it's just one of the events we do every year. We haven't really had a chance to debrief since then, and it's very moving. And for that whole week afterwards, it always affects me in a way. But you know, the total number was 263 people that we've lost over the past 5 years in this general area where we live, and that's only the people who sent in the names. You know, there's many more than that, and you know, Kerry, I just wanted to pass over to you or Richie and just talk about your role in that night and that evening.
Well, I really enjoyed that event. It really seemed like natural, and the intent was like, it was like pure intentions. But the one thing that stuck out the most to me is a male that I actually lived with in Malden, who I grew up with, who also passed away years ago. I've never seen his picture, his name come through at any vigil, and so his name and picture came through the slideshow, and it took my breath away because it just brought back just like the community as a whole, because he died in Malden. Him and I like lost contact in Malden, and I'm like, wow, this is so community based and like based on the loss as a whole that Malden has really felt. And it gave me goosebumps. I started tearing up, and so for me, it was more powerful than most vigils that I've been to. It was really beautiful.
I think it's important for the families, you know, just like what you said, Kerry, when you see that name and the families are in the room, and it just felt like you could hear a pin drop in that room, you know. Yeah, again, I struggle talking about it, and Richie, you know, I want to thank you for coming, and your message was fantastic. You did a great job, and a lot of people really appreciated that you came down and shared some of your experience, strength, and hope.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a great honor for me to share that podium with you, especially because you were a huge part of my recovery. I've known you for a while. Always honored to be shoulder to shoulder with my sister, Kerry, my soul sister, as I call her, and I love Tommy, and Tommy has an interesting thing where like it's a very like the emotions were high, but he's always like a jovial, like funny, like he made it easier, so it was like
so
really.
Let's make it clear, Tommy is Kerry's
husband,
yes.
who's a good friend of mine also, who I love. We can't not mention Tommy. He's just a good person to have around. But I want to give the mother that spoke had the most courage, and you could feel the emotions coming out of her. See, there was a lot of pain in that room, and there was a lot of healing going on, because like you said, these are conversations that we need to have. I mean, we talk about sex in school, as education. I mean, we got to start to have these conversations about drugs and death to let people know, especially our youth, that this isn't a playground when you're dealing with drugs, you know. So it was awesome to do that with two people that I love very much, and honored you guys. I really rode off of that energy. I can't own and say, oh, you know, that was you guys.
Yeah, that was, you nailed it. I mean, there's not much more I can say about that night, but I just can't believe we've been doing this now. This was our 5th year, and it's just, it has flown by. And again, the drugs are real, the overdoses are real, the Narcan is real, and people dying, it's far too often. And you know, I thank the both of you for being a part of this battle with me and with Malden Overcoming Addiction. And also 10 days after that, we had our 2nd annual MOA Rocks Addiction, and we had a, you know, it was a rock concert where we raised funds for our recovery coach program. And we feel at Malden Overcoming Addiction, and I know you guys feel the same way, that recovery coaching is the way of the future. Peer-to-peer recovery coaching is, it's been shown to work, it's proven to work, and you know, we have hired a couple of coaches since the last show. We haven't met in a while, so we have a couple of people on the payroll, and you know, we're in recovery court in Malden, and we're working with a lot of different people, and we're really reaching out and helping some people. And Kerry, you spoke at that event as well, and I know that you're coaching and you're doing amazing work. And you know, what's your thoughts on recovery coaching in general?
I just find it to be a very vital role in someone's recovery process, especially nowadays, where there are constantly so many changes going on, whether it be in programs or law enforcement or through the courts or even in the communities. Just having somebody with lived experience that you can bounce your feelings off of, bounce your ideas off of, where it doesn't feel so clinical, it doesn't feel so legal. It's more of just a trusting person that has gone through the life experience that will basically say in a trusting way, like, I'm not really sure that's a really good idea. And like, I look at it and I wish I had a coach when I was struggling. I wish I had somebody where it was like a shame-free zone, no judgment. I could call basically 24/7, but with the respective boundaries, because we do establish that, but basically call the person when I have like a fleeting thought of making an impulsive decision. And so, especially with that event, there was the result of coaching. There was a result that was there that was speaking on their own experience of having a coach, what Malden Overcoming has done for that person's life, and it was right in front of you, and it was the most beautiful. I was again standing there in tears, like, this is what it's about. Watching her recovery process, that is what this is about.
Meredith.
Yes,
Yes,
Meredith.
that was amazing.
She did an amazing job. She did such a great job.
Yeah, I grew up with Mary.
She's a great woman.
And Richie, you know, you weren't at the event because you were away, but you're vital in helping, in coaching, so you know firsthand exactly what recovery coaching is, what it takes, and let's switch gears instead of the bad things and the narrative that's always out there on using. How about, like, we can talk about the successes as well in recovery and the difference that we can make and are making on a daily basis, and we see it firsthand at events like that. These people stood up. I think someone had over a year clean. You know, someone else had a couple of years clean. You know, there was Matt O'Malley with multiple years clean that stood up, and you know, we can recover and we can live a beautiful life, and stigma is a huge piece of that too, but we'll get into that in a second. But again, I just know you're on the front lines, and
Thank you.
Richie, like, you gotta give me a little something on what you do every day, because let's let the people know what recovery coaching is all about.
But for me, the peer-to-peer is what I'm in love with, and sometimes I see in real time the success. As Carrie said, we're not above or below you. We're just someone to either listen, or if you need something, an ear to listen to, you know, just maybe some advice. Or I love that role. It's a lot easier than sitting at a desk going, I know what to do and you don't. And you know, as far as what it's hard for me to talk about what I do like every day. I'm not too accustomed to
So
doing that,
you
but
don't
I
have
do
to
a lot.
talk about what you do, but how about some of the successes that you see? You know, what does that
Yeah.
feel like when you actually are helping someone
Yeah.
get 24 hours not using?
Well, that's the secret, right? So this is the thing we don't tell you. Service changes people's lives, and when we get to have our paw print on that, and just be a part of it, just to be in that long line of help, it's the real paycheck, and that's all I could really say about that. It's like that I feel a feeling that you don't get, I don't get or see anyway. When you see the lights go on in somebody else's eyes, and you go, wow, they get it, they're different now, and it's like that's the real paycheck for us, you know.
And Keriann said it, like, you know, so the three of us, we're in recovery. This wasn't here when we got
Yeah.
clean or when we entered recovery.
Yeah.
So we know firsthand just how hard it is to walk that journey. And the other thing I do want to say about coaching, and well, what I face on some of my challenges, you know, people use. And like the hardest thing to do is to make the call before you use. But the beauty with recovery coaching is even if you're using, you can still, like, I will still talk to you.
Still want to tell you.
Absolutely. Like, let's work this out. Like, let's
Right.
talk about why you did it. Let's
Yeah.
talk about how can we maybe use a little less the next time.
Right,
You know, if someone is shooting 5 bags of heroin a day, how can we get you to shoot 4?
Right.
Like, let's talk harm reduction. You know, there's so many roles that a recovery coach can do. When I got clean, without mentioning like names of things that I would go through, because if you used, people would almost yell at you.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just not going to say the name,
Yeah.
but again, there was none of this out there, so this is changing the game. And I'll switch gears. One more thing we have coming up. We have our Celebrate Sober event, New Year's Eve. This will be our 5th annual. We've done it 4 times, and what we felt at Malden Overcoming Addiction, it's very important for the person. I guess I was taking my own experience on this when I was 30, 60, and 90 days. When that important night comes up, whether it's the night before Thanksgiving, your birthday, New Year's Eve, and all your friends are still doing what they were doing because you haven't made the switch yet to get out of the people, places, and things. You're still stuck and you're not feeling real good about yourself and you just want to stay home alone. So we've created an atmosphere where everyone comes out, they eat, they dance, we show how much fun, it's a safe environment, it's kid-friendly, and what an amazing night that's going to be. We have such a good time every year, and I just wanted to talk about that for a little bit because people can have fun in recovery.
Absolutely,
You know?
absolutely.
That's what I wanted to say because Paul does a lot of events,
Yeah.
and this is what's important. Is Paul doesn't give himself enough credit for this. Is we do have fun in recovery, and that's
Yeah.
the thing I love about these. And some of the events that you put on is setting up the platform for people to come and meet and have fun and laugh, like the comedy shows and the rock shows and Celebrate Sober and all that stuff. It takes a lot of work.
Malden Overcomes Day.
Malden Overcomes Day. It takes a lot of work to put these things together, but we do have fun in recovery. And I think that's the most important thing a young person should know is we have a blast in recovery. Or else we probably wouldn't be here. We'd be doing something else.
Right. Like, why would we stay sober if it didn't get better and if we didn't have fun?
Right.
And I feel, you know, along with Malden Overcoming Addiction, like, you know, we meet. It's not just, there's a board, there's members, there's a bunch of people that sit down and we talk about, gee, what was it like? What could we have used? Just like you said, Kerry. And like at the beginning, it's just important to show people that like community is huge. To be because I never thought I'd be a part of a community.
Right. Never.
Ever.
Never.
Like I didn't think that was possible for
Yeah.
someone like me, and now to see what has happened over time, we just want everyone else to feel that.
Absolutely.
More and more, actually. I have more people reaching out nowadays asking, can you get me involved in the community? Can you let me know what events are going on? Can you let me know upcoming events? Where can I volunteer? Like, more so in the community side of it than the actual support side of it, because it's like the purpose. Like, what am I doing? What is the purpose of me doing this? And it's to feel connection. I want to feel a connection somewhere. Where's my placement? And so, especially with Malden is like the go-to. MOA is the go-to for events, community-driven connections and like the starting place for people who are starting to like feel the waters on like where do I really want to begin my journey. And so it's what better place than a New Year's Eve Malden Overcoming event, right? You start the new year that way.
I mean, a place to go. It's so important, and I know, Kerry, that years ago you're part of Arlington Overcoming Addiction.
Yes.
And that was around, I think, before us, or like, and I would get so much, I was so enthused in watching your posts, and like I would see parades.
Yeah.
I would see you guys out there with your banners, and like that fueled me. I'm like, ooh, that's how we can, that's a great idea to get out in the community, and like what that does, like let's switch a little bit. What does that do? That breaks stigma.
Right.
Because people in recovery, you got to speak it.
Right.
You must tell your story. It's that important to tell your story to change the narrative of just what people may think about people in recovery.
Right.
I mean, let's talk about stigma a little bit. How do you feel about stigma?
I think without stigma, there wouldn't be as much change. So it brings like an awareness to all of us, but it also keeps a lot of people out. And it's even being in recovery, the stigma of even being in recovery. It's not even just, active or struggling or wherever somebody's at. The stigma alone just separates. It just separates, and it's like a divider. And it's like, what for what? Because at this point where we're at, who can really walk away not affected by this? Who really is that like strong that they can even hold any type of judgment or stigma? Nowadays, that literally kills people. That literally takes people out.
And this is why we like talking on this show, because if I was ever flipping through the TV and I saw a show like this talking about stigma, because I don't know about either one of you, but I'm going back to when I was using.
Right.
When I was stuck and I wanted to die every moment of every day, the only thing I did was wait for the guy that didn't show up even when I had money. Like I can go on, but then I would say to myself, the stigma is what kept me there. I didn't want people to know what I was doing. I would hide it. Because if you found out, I would crumble even worse.
Yeah. You want to know how important it is, because I think 20 years ago, I wish there was a Keriann Caccavaro for me to call, because how Kerry is and how open she is, and I think, because I know stigma kills, but it also has saved a lot of people too. It has opened, it's unified us. It's allowed us to have a couple of jobs together and work together and educate other people. And I think, as much as this is how important it is to share our stories, is to let people know, because we're bringing this message to people, or you're going to bring this message to somebody's living room, and it's an open conversation now. Back in the day, 20 years ago, when I was trying to get it together, it was a well-kept secret. You swept everything underneath the rug. You didn't talk about our family business. And so we're in really good times now. And I don't want to say we're in good times, but this is the greatest time for education, awareness of smashing the stigma. So.
But it's also the greatest time of the most drugs. The drugs are changing.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Like, since 2014 when fentanyl broke, but like it's all changed. So again, we feel that breaking the stigma is everything. Until people understand what recovery is, and it could be the guy next to you, it could be the girl next door, it could be your teacher, it could be your priest, it can be anybody. It can happen to any one of us, and people are people. You don't label someone, like I'll say the word addict, we're going away from that word. That's a bad word now. It's a person with substance use disorder. And I love that. We're changing that narrative, because that is demoralizing, it's demeaning, and that's the stuff, like when you say that, in that word, that can be a nasty word.
Even just on the pathways, like the pathways, even from 2014, where it was like, there's only really one way that you can really get sober. There's only one way you can walk into recovery. And now it's like, whatever keeps you alive, we welcome it. 100% we welcome it. And even for me, it may not necessarily in the beginning even have anything to do with not using. It's the connection that initiates the success. So it's like, however long that takes, as long as there is some successful connection that's going on there, where we can help you feel like you have the strength to have the ability to recover.
Yeah.
And we'll get there in time. We will get there.
You've said the word twice, and that's connection. And I believe that's the opposite of addiction.
Yes.
And it couldn't be said any better. I love that word because the connection is something I didn't have for about 25 years.
Right.
Total disassociation with life, with everything, stuck in a room. Same thing, the rat race.
Yeah.
And like now the connection, because without the connection, what do we really have?
Right.
Every single person needs connection. We all need somebody, and that's why peer-to-peer recovery. It's absolutely amazing. And look where we sit. We're doing a television show to spread the message now, to break stigma, to show people that it works, to give a message out. You know, and this is amazing. And I don't know, Kerry, you've shared at so many events that I see you, and it's really good. I mean, let's face it, a lot of men outnumber women.
Yes.
In recovery. They just do.
Yeah.
And like I love seeing you share a woman in recovery, like women recover too.
Right.
Amen.
You know, like that's real.
Right.
And I love that about you. Like you stand up and
Yeah.
I don't know, and I look at like, because we do a lot, we put a lot of people into treatment, and I track everything. 9 out of 10 are men. I haven't figured it out yet,
Yeah.
but most people that come in are male. And then when the woman does come in, the other problem I'm seeing is there's less female beds.
Right.
There's less female sober houses. It's harder. So I'm hoping that we can change that
Right.
narrative moving forward.
Right. Well, the barriers are also much harder for women if it's more mental health wise, if it's more structure wise. And it is like the times that we live in. A lot of times it's easier for a male to step out for a period of time, where a woman, I'm not really sure why, but they find it harder to walk away from the household. They find it more difficult to walk away from the kids for a period of time. The guilt, the shame. It's more of a ongoing cycle of failure, like the feeling of failure, but. I actually had this conversation at your event last week, and I was speaking to Matt O'Malley, and so I said to him, like, do you know why I have a kind of look on my face where it's like I have to be very careful on who I allow in, because there's not a lot of females, and there's not a lot of females that are willingly open at the moment to speak out on their personal experience, speak out about their growth, speak out about their failures. And so it's, for me, my survival. So, I'm covered in tattoos, I got big curly hair. I have a strong, like, stay away from me kind of look, but that's not really who I am.
Right.
But it's my survival.
Yeah.
Because there are not a lot of females. I wish there were more females, but with that also goes into various fellowships. There's a difficult time. Even coaches, there's a very difficult time finding a female coach that, has gone down the same paths that that the person has gone down. So for me, I have to be an open book, and I have to show up and share, because that's my responsibility. Yeah. It's my responsibility to share my failures, my strengths, my weaknesses, but it's my responsibility to share my hope. That's what it is.
Yeah, right. Amen to that.
Well, Mr. Rich, what can you add?
To that, well, I agree with her. I see it in real time. On both sides of the fence, in the peer-to-peer and in treatment. Just the facts are, and especially when, we look at, if we were to really crunch those numbers, we see a lot of men, and then here's what I see is a lot of the women have the responsibility of the children. So where, there's a whole nother thing that goes on if the woman has to let go of the children, or DCF takes over, it's like, it's a little bit heavy of a burden for the woman the man can step away at any time. But most women have children and responsibilities, lack of resources, lack of good examples. So I see it also.
Yeah, I do believe, though, we there are so many houses out there. I just see more help from men, and I'm hoping that narrative changes. Like that's important.
Yeah.
And
Well, we should change it, us three.
Yeah.
Again,
absolutely.
that's why I brought it up.
We should be.
You know, people, it needs to be a conversation that needs to be had, because
Yeah.
everyone can recover.
Yes.
Every race can recover. It doesn't, like, addiction doesn't discriminate. It hits every single one of us. Yeah, this has been a fantastic show, and I want to thank both of you. Any last words? Anything you want to say?
I would say there's hope to anybody that's like, if we can do it,
Right.
if anybody really can. And I know
Absolutely.
it's kind of cliche, but reach out and have a cup of coffee with us. Like, I always say this to Paul, to people who's like kind of have this little stigma about Paul now. I always go have a cup of coffee with him. Then come back and tell me, because I think when they really get to know your heart, if they knew you like I knew you, they wouldn't maybe have this thing about you where they already have a preconceived notion about you. If they really knew your soul like I know your soul.
I think it's a lot like what Kerry just said. I seem standoffish. I seem
Yeah.
it's intimidating. That's what I've been told. And
That's not who you are, though.
no, of course not. Of course not. It's just, you know, sometimes I don't. I'm not even going to try to figure that out.
Yeah.
It's
You know,
But you love your city. You're madly in love with the city and the work
I'm
that we
madly
do.
in love with working together in recovery with the both of you and people just like you. And I believe that that's why we're still on the planet.
Yeah,
You know, I think we all have felt, why am I still here? Because everybody else, a lot of my friends are gone.
Yeah.
And if I had a nickel for every time I've asked that to myself, like, why me? And I don't have that answer.
Yeah.
The only answer I come up with is just to pass it on.
Right.
Pay it forward.
Absolutely.
The worst thing you can do, like they taught me something in a fellowship that I started in. You can't keep this. You have to give it away. If you keep it, you're doomed to repeat it.
Right.
And I never forgot that.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's what we do. We give it away. And I just want to end by saying that if you're struggling, if you may need help, there's hope out there. You can contact Malden Overcoming Addiction at our Gmail. It's maldenovercomingaddiction@gmail.com. Our website is maldenovercomingaddiction.com. Our Facebook page is a great way to get a hold of us. That would be me. That would be communicating with you directly. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Malden Overcomes. And until next month, we hope you tune in. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you.
Amen.